Welcome to Low Country Spotlight. I'm your host, Margie Pizarro. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to see all the wonderful things we have going on in the Low Country. Now, I've been joking before we went on the air saying, today's show is not about you all, it's about me. I'm just joking. I have back in the studio with us Dr. Erica Strickland Parker from Behavior Associates in West Ashley. And the reason I said this is about me is because I enjoy her coming in so much, because not only do these segments help me in terms of learning so much more about mental illnesses and diseases that affect the community, but I know that they also help you all as well. So Dr. Erica, thank you so much again for coming to Low Country Spotlight.
Well, thanks for having me back.
We just want you here all the time. Now, we chatted a little bit before about what you wanted to discuss today, and I know we decided that you were going to talk about depression. When I hear the word depression, I immediately think, is it just a case of the winter doldrum or the baby blues, or you're just not feeling yourself? But I'm sure there is a much greater definition to depression than what I have.
Sure. And that's what a lot of people confuse depression with. So you're not alone. And in fact, that can often stop people from even reaching out to seek help, because they said, oh, I've just been kind of down lately, a little sad, that kind of thing. So, but a true depression or a clinical depression is a persistent feeling of sadness. And there's a lot of different symptoms that go along with a depression. So, I'd say at a minimum for 2 to 3 weeks or more of feeling persistently sad, or also a loss of interest in things that you would normally like to do. Like I normally play sports, or I normally exercise and have different hobbies, but lately I haven't been feeling like doing any of that. A decrease in your energy level, can barely get out of bed, or it takes a lot of effort to do things you would normally do. Changes in your appetite, not eating at all or overeating. Problems with sleep.
That was one of the things that I immediately associate being depressed with, sleeping too much. And as you say, you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't want to do anything.
Sure.
And what are what causes people to be depressed? I know there are tons of things that can cause us to be sad, whether it's grief, loss of a loved one, a change in something that we enjoyed, or having an unexpected life shift. But what are you seeing as some of the major causes of depression?
Well, at the end of the day, we do not have a definitive cause for depression. And so that can be problematic, because obviously if we could put that information out there and I could avoid A, B, and C, then that would be the easy fix. What we do say about depression is it can be genetic, it can be biological, or it can be environmental. And so we look at people who have family histories, a first-degree relative, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sister, or brother. So if there's a significant family history of depression, then that person is probably more inclined at some point in their life to maybe have some difficulties with depression.
And is that because of, did you say genetics, DNA, or just environmental, being around someone who's depressed and who doesn't handle stress better, or is it a combination of both of those things?
It could be either or. So you can have the genetic predisposition, or it can be strictly environmental.
And for me, I think of, if you have a history of breast cancer in your family because of something that's physical, if you have a history of heart disease and diabetes in your family, it's physical. But when I think about depression and other mental illnesses, it doesn't seem that can be transferred through DNA.
And that's why I was saying we don't necessarily have a specific cause, but what we do find is that oftentimes when people actually present to treatment, because those are the people that we can actually research and test, we do often find that those people do have some type of family history of the condition itself, or some other mental illness. So.
Okay, and then you talked about environmental causes of depression. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. You had mentioned earlier a loss of a loved one, and a lot of people will go through essentially a clinical depression after a major loss of a loved one. And so we are a little more guarded in terms of making that diagnosis if somebody comes in immediately following a death, because a lot of times people can have a grieving process that can mimic a clinical depression. And so, we're a little less committed to that particular diagnosis if it immediately follows a death.
So what would you tell that person if someone, they lost a loved one, they've gotten through, at least the beginning part of it, the funeral and being visitors and things of that nature. And so there, it's kind of almost an unwritten time in which they should be expected to grieve. But if it persists for a longer period of time, then you move into the category of clinical depression.
Right, and what we're really looking at is this person impaired? You know, are they unable to go to school or to work or to operate normally in their day-to-day life? And so then we can look at, okay, the death has passed, this person has some period of grieving, but now they're still not able to function as they normally would pre-death.
And you said impaired, and that just struck me because that's what it does. If your inability to function as you normally would is affected, then that's, wow, that for some reason that kind of just was a light bulb for me.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And that's typically when people ultimately will pick up the phone and you know, reach out for help.
But what do you do, and we've talked about this before, when people don't, when people, you know, just don't respond to, you know, what they see from other people on the outside in terms of encouraging them to get help, when they don't realize, hey, you know what, I haven't gotten out of bed in a couple of days, or, you know, I haven't taken a bath, or I haven't been to work, I keep calling in sick. What about when people just don't respond to those cues?
Well, that's hopefully where, you know, loved ones or friends will be in a position to have observed some of these changes in their loved one and be able to reach out and say, Sally, you know, you haven't been yourself lately. And it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen you at church, or you've been calling out sick a lot lately. So, you know, what is going on with you? And so perhaps that's where the other people in your life can reach out and say, you know, we've noticed some changes.
What about statistics, just in terms of the rates of depression, you know, men, women, children, you know, among, you know, gender, of course, among different cultural groups? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess we would say that, you know, depression is a very, very common mental condition, and we would say it affects millions of people annually. Now, whether or not those millions actually present for treatment is, again, you know, the million-dollar piece there. But generally we say women are usually affected more, and again, you know, it's hard to discern because women typically are the ones who will reach out for help more so than men. You know, access to care is also affected by the ability to afford care, and so if you have insurance or you have the financial resources, those again are people who are actually going to present and get help, as opposed to those who might not be able to afford it.
We're having a great conversation. Would you stay for another segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Okay, Dr. Erica is going to stay with us a little bit longer. We've got more Low Country Spotlight coming right up.